All right, everybody, we are live with brother Barry Harambe Barry. I was gonna call you Barry Payton, but what do you prefer to go by, brother? Harambe Barry.
Harambe, my Tim name is Aruba Kabia.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, so we're just gonna talk about New Orleans today. So the title of the video is New Orleans is the closest you can get to Africa without leaving the US. So I just want to add a question mark there because a few people might not agree with that. So, because you got South Carolina, you got Bella Geechee and all that. So let me just add a question mark next to that. But let me ask you, what do you think about that title?
I would say to my Gullah Geechee family, we are brothers and sisters,
right?
Because it's the same slave traders that brought you there were the same that brought us here.
Exactly.
So same ethnic groups from West Africa are the same here in Southeast Louisiana, Southern Louisiana, and the whole Mississippi lower valley.
Okay. Now just go ahead and introduce yourself, brother. Tell us what you do.
Okay. My name is Harambe Haruka. I'm from New Orleans, 7-1. And my wife Mohiba doing this. Hard head for life. I represent the Timmy of our nation. And I've just recently found out on my paternal side that I'm Bisa. I am a student of history. I am forever the student. On my spare time, my hobby is learning more about African retention in New Orleans and expressing it and sharing it.
Oh wow. Okay. So you do a lot of cultural events in New Orleans as well, right? Because I checked out your page. I've seen like you doing a lot of things at Congo Square and all over the city. So this tell us a bit about that, like what kind of events that you do.
Referring to Congo Square, every Sunday from 3 to 5, sometimes 6 o'clock when the sun goes down, now that we have daylight savings. We have drumming, dancing. You'll hear some speeches.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear some poetry. You'll hear some history, some lecturing. You get a little bit of the whole gambit of what New Orleans has to offer. Sometimes you get we say Indians. You get the Mardi Gras, the Black Nasty Indians to come through. You will get some traditional African dance troupe to come through. Mm-hmm. We perform. Well, you know what? It's not even a performance because it comes from the heart. A lot of stuff is improvised, but sometimes we might do some traditional beats like some djembe, some junjun, West African like dudumba or something like that. We just
so are a lot of those influences that come from Africa.
Yeah. Well, let's start with Congo Square. We'll deal with some of the African history of Africans coming to New Orleans. In 1718, 1719, the French, under the guise of the Company of the Indies, started bringing us to Mobile, Biloxi, New Orleans, even Galveston. They first started with the Yoruba, the Fawn, the Ewe. They first brought them into the Louisiana colony. And then shortly after, into the 1720s, they started bringing our people from the Senegal, the Wolof, the Sedan, the Jola, the Mandinka, Bambara. So many people from the Senegal, from the Badi Benin, Badi Biafra, also from the Congo and from Angola region. And probably that was the largest influx of Africans that were brought to New Orleans, especially after the 1760s when the Spanish took over. So you hear this word Congo Square so often. It is a place of reverence. It's a place of fellowship, a place of worship. Um, Congo Square originally was a Native American well, it was a burial ground, but it was also a place of celebration. They always had festivals here. You had Homa, Chitamacha, Chapatulas, Chafuncta, even as far as the Pascagoula, Atakapa, the Biloxi, even far northern as the Natchez and the Tunica, they would all meet here. It was a place of centration. It was a place of of holiness. It's hallowed ground. It's sacred ground. So when the French built their French quarters, their little city of Nouveau Orleans, they built a big wall, a fortified wall around it, called a rampart. But on the other side of that rampart, at the most northern tip, was the swampy grassland, which we call Congo Square. So during that colonial period, on Sundays, the French planter, the French aristocrats allowed the enslaved Africans to perform or to be themselves, to be their most Africanness themselves on Sunday afternoons after Catholic Mass. With Congo Square, there were 6 to 7 circles of African nations, African ethnic groups. You had the Mandinka in one circle. You had the Yoruba in one circle. You had the Wolof in one circle. I'm always giving my people a shout out. You had the Timne in one circle. You had the Mende in one circle. You had all of these different ethnic groups like the Hausa, the Demba, whatever it was of the day. They would separate themselves and do their own dances, their own rhythms, their own speech, their native tongue. They would even have their own food, and once in a while, you'll get these words of conflict among some of these ethnic groups. But all in all, we were unified, especially on that day, because we were all oppressed. Congo Square signifies that you could have a large number of Africans situated in one place, maybe the 500, the 600, in some accountants is up to 1,000 Africans all in one place. Being their most African selves. Out of that, our women, were the sole controllers of the market. There was a market at Congo Square. They sold their goods. They exhibited their talents. They control part of their destiny because they made money at the market and were able to buy their freedom or buy their family freedom. Congo Square was relatively big. This was like 5 acres. What you see today is just a small section of Congo Square.
Okay.
Yeah, what is the?
I'm thinking like, wow, they did all of that on that bit of land, and it makes sense.
So this common picture, this common portrait, where you see our African ancestors dancing. And in the background, you see this wall, this big partition, and you see the St. Louis Cathedral behind it. So that's like around St. Anne and St. Peter's. But that only shows you a little small section. So just imagine these big centrifuge, 7, 8, maybe 9 at sometimes, it depending on, how many ethnic groups could get their people together. Because, at the same time, our people were sold off. But just to imagine the different music that you would hear, the different rhythms that you would hear, the different languages and dialects that you would hear, to me, it's always fascinating because once we step in the Congo Square, we feel that energy, we feel that kinship, we feel that our ancestors have spoken, So Congo Square has a lot of significance because there's no way in the United States that you had this many Africans free, enslaved, or otherwise, to come together in harmony and, be their most cultural self.
Okay. Now you mentioned music. So what instruments or genre of music did Africa have influence on Congo Square or New Orleans as a whole?
Well, first of all, we have to start off with the drum. There were several different drums, so it depends what ethnic group you were with, but we weren't able to bring drums with us per se, so we made drums. Some drums were made out of barrels, but you take a hide, fresh hide, skin the hide, stretch it, tone it.
That's creative.
Yeah. Or you take a long log. There was an extremely long, about 4 feet. It mainly comes from the Congo. Mainly comes from the Angola area. It has these divots on the side, but it would lay it on the ground and it would beat on it. There was also a square drum. You would see a jawbone. You would see, and we're talking about the initial Africans over there, because as time goes on, different instruments were introduced into Congo Square. But right now, you would see string instruments like in Ngoni, the precursor to the banjo. In Haiti was called the banza, and some of the Haitians brought that with them to Congo Square. You would see even like a little bottle, like a glass, any glass apparatus, and you have a stick beating on it, a modern day shakare with like a little squash with the seeds in it, and, it makes a beautiful rhythmic sound. Later on, you would get other string instruments like a fiddle, yeah, you'd have a different type of drum.
Okay. And you play the drums, right?
I attempt to play the drums. No way, no how. I learned from some of the greats like Bill Summon and Baba Luther. Look, we got a long history of drummers in the city. We have some drummers today, some who recently passed, but like Idris Muhammad, Earl Palmer, James Black, Hurley Riley, man, you name it. I mean, they are just super drummers. But that rhythm comes out of Congo Square. You hear the rhythms of the bambula or bambula. You hear the kalinda. You hear the Congo or the chica or the juba. These rhythms had dances that accompanied, it also. In today's music, you still hear it in the second line in the jazz bands, brass band music. I mean, you got to come check a second line. You got to get to a second line quick. Man, the energy is so powerful. So jazz was inseminated and raised in Congo Square. The neighboring area is called Treme. Treme is the larger neighborhood right outside of the French Quarter. And you have some of the greatest musicians that the world has ever seen and ever heard comes from out of Treme. Right next door to it is Storyville, where the speakeasies and all the clubs were where these jazz musicians played. And there's Black Storyville, where it's downtown New Orleans, which was for the most part concentrated black, and that's where Louis Armstrong came from. And right past that is Central City. You have all of these greats like Buddy Bolton. It astonished me sometimes, like some of the quality and quantity of musicians that came out of New Orleans, like Kid Ory, King Oliver, oh my God, Jelly Roll Morton. I mean, the list goes on and on. But all of that stems from the rhythms of Congo Square.
Gotcha. Now, with New Orleans, like, you can't talk about New Orleans without talking about the food that they have out there. Like, what African influence what influence does Africa have on the food? Like, what types of food were brought from Africa? What type of dishes are similar to African dishes? That's a bit about that.
Okay. First, I would always have to go back to the earliest history in French colonial control of New Orleans, of Southeast Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Since we, as Menday, Timney, we were part of the Grain Coast.
Mm-hmm.
We cultivated rice. We cultivated millet, sorghum. We cultivated a lot of grains. In Senegambia, it was the same. All over Guinea, it was the same. That's why the French first wanted to bring us to Louisiana to cultivate rice. That was the first, like, really large crop that Louisiana had was rice. Other than that, it was indigo. They tried tobacco, even they tried cotton, but in that area, it's real swampy. It wouldn't be successful. Later on, they brought in the sugar cane. But rice is one of the reasons why we were brought to Louisiana, because it's, bayou country. It's very, very marshy. You don't even have to set up a paddy field like talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So many of our dishes here is either accompanied by rice or rice on the side, but it's the foundation of the dish. But every Monday, it's traditional ones. We serve red beans and rice. It's just the dish of the day. It goes back to the 19th century and part of the 20th century. It was laundry day, so you let your beans sit and let it simmer all day. But gumbo, everybody knows gumbo.
Yeah, I actually read gumbo is a Bantu word for okra. Is that?
Yeah, it is. You see it in Angola language. You see the word gumbo or sometimes nkombo. You have different variations for it. Even you see it all over West Africa. You hear this word. It is the signature dish of New Orleans. And everybody makes it different. I mean, my grandma makes the best gumbo. So she don't make it. My wife makes the best gumbo. Don't make gumbo. So everybody is different, but gumbo is synonymous with okra.
Okay.
I don't know why there's debate. There's this long debate between filet gumbo and okra gumbo. Without gumbo, without okra and gumbo, it's a soup. You have to have okra in the gumbo. And filet is just the powder form of sassafras. The sassafras, herb or root. And people use it as a thickener. But you can have so many ingredients in gumbo. But similar dishes like that in Africa is, you have chabuchin.
Yeah.
I know you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's different variations of that out of Senegal and in Gambia. Jollof rice. Here we call it jambalaya. And a variation of that is we also have dirty rice. It's the exact same thing. When you talk about Creole cuisine or Creole dishes, its derivative is of Africa, of West Africa.
So there's always like a jollof rice debate within like African countries, right?
I know I don't understand it, but I know
New Orleans could actually be in that debate, right?
All right, we should tell the world we got the best jollof rice. But see that goes to tell that jollof rice is one of the kingdoms out of Senegal, the jollof. So that is a connection that New Orleans has.
Now you mentioned Angola a few times, and I was also looking up like Angola Prison. Like they have a prison named after Angola. So in Louisiana. So like, what is the origin behind that? Because I know you're familiar with it also.
Well, Angola Prison was once called Angola Plantation. Under a shrewd, I would say cruel slave trader, slave owner by the name of Franklin. He has many plantations all over the southern United States. He had offices in Virginia, South Carolina, Natchez, Mississippi, and New Orleans. His probably the biggest base was New Orleans. If anybody is familiar with 12 Years a Slave, the story of Solomon Northup, that was the trader. That was the slave trader that brought him, and sold him to other planters in out of New Orleans, but into neighboring plantations along the river. Angola, he wanted his African from Angola because of the sturdiness, because of the hard work that he've always heard, and at times, since there was an influx, the value of an African from Angola kind of went down because it was an influx. But at the same time, word got out, so the price went up. So, it's north of Baton Rouge. It's actually in the Tunica Native American Tunica territory. It's off of Highway 61. It's in the middle of nowhere, but he needed that type of control, that type of power to make sure everybody knew that it was Angola. So, I mean, it's a story hard to tell because that man had a trail of tears of Africans that started all the way from South Carolina, cut across the midsection of the South, and had some of his auctions in Natchez, and sold some more Africans down the river to New Orleans and Baton Rouge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's brutal.
It's brutal.
Now, I was looking at your page. I know you were talking about the Tignon Headwraps. Tignon. Yeah. I got to get my pronunciation right. So tell us a bit about that.
Okay. Look, I can get with them. I always try to make this short. So,
okay. Yeah. We're gonna wrap it up.
No. As much time as you have, I got. So the 10-year rap. There's many facets of it, but there was an edict by Governor Miro, and it was pushed by some of the white Creoles of New Orleans to make sure that women of African descent would cover their head. Once again, it's a control, it's a power factor, because these African women, African Creole women, were highly sought after. They were beautiful. It's in our genes. We look that good. We're highly desirable. So, in a way, it was competition for some of these white Creoles. These Frenchmen love brown women, and what they would do, they would set up families. They would set up these marital agreements with these women, and take care of the kids. But that tignon was made to signify that you have African descent. But at the same time, the African connotation is that women from Africa always wore their head coverings here, because most of them are from at the time was from Senegambia. You had this group of women in Senegal called Senyades. Senyades was an elite group of women. They were wives of Portuguese businessmen, French businessmen. They were, and I would never say the word mistress, because these women had power. They had power to market. They were strict business women also. They wore these elaborate headdress. Some might go, like a foot high, but very colorful with a whole attire to match. They would strut their stuffs in the streets of Senegal. You can still see it today. Some celebrations today of the Senyades. So some of that, pulled over from the streets of Saint Louis into New Orleans. That same traditions, because our from West Africa, not all of them, but some of them already wore their head covers, and some of the enslaved African women in New Orleans wore their head cover. So I put that that head wrap, that modulus design on these women of New Orleans. It would let say, hey, we know your ancestry. You know, we know that you come from an African stock. You know,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So, like, anything else? Anything else you want to add about New Orleans, or we can go ahead and close out.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of things, man. Because like you got to come here for Mardi Gras. You got to come here for
Yeah,
Harlem.
yeah,
You got to
definitely.
the black mask and Indian.
Yeah,
And I mean, we kind of say that in jest, but it is a masculine tradition that you'll see in Senegal also, like the compa, you know, other beaded work that you might see even with the babalike. You know, you see these beaded masks, you see these feathering plumes,
yeah.
you see these same drum rhythms, call and response.
All right. Looks like the connection. Your connection just went out. Let's see. All right, we're trying to get him back. His connection just went out. So let's see. All right, so his connection just went out. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this broadcast. Thank you everybody for tuning in on the history and culture of New Orleans. And if you guys want to contact this brother Barry, his information, I'll be able to put his information on my Instagram page. So just go to my Instagram page, and then you'll see his Instagram, and then you can contact him if you want to travel to New Orleans, or you have any information about the culture of New Orleans or the history of New Orleans as it relates to Africa, or just anything to do with New Orleans or Louisiana as a whole, because he's a very knowledgeable brother and he can help you. So, all right, everybody, I'm out.